I'll write an expanded version of Part 1 in simple English, keeping it interesting and in third-person style. Here you go. The bright stars sparkled in the deep blackness of space as the Felridi patrol vessel cut through the emptiness like a razor-sharp knife. The ship was big and powerful, with weapons that could destroy smaller ships in seconds. Its metal skin shone with a blue-green light that marked all Felridi military ships. Inside the command room, Captain Tay stood tall, his spotted fur neat and clean. His yellow eyes, with their narrow black slits, stared at the screen showing a small human ship. The tip of his tail moved slightly, the only sign that he was excited about finding an intruder. "We have an unknown ship in our space, Captain," said Officer Han, his clawed fingers moving over the control panel. "It's from Earth. One passenger only." Captain Tay nodded, his whiskers twitching. "Show me the energy readings." The screen changed to show strange patterns that made Tay's fur stand up along his spine. Something was not right about this ship, something dangerous. "Open communication," he ordered, his voice deep and rough. When the screen lit up, Tay was surprised to see a human female with short black hair and calm brown eyes. Most aliens showed fear when meeting the Felridi, who were known across the galaxy as fierce fighters and strict lawkeepers. This human seemed almost bored. "Unidentified vessel," Tay growled, showing his sharp teeth. "You have entered Felridi space without permission. Explain yourself." The human smiled slightly. "I am Dr. Jin Park, xenobiologist from Earth Science Academy. I apologize for crossing your border. I was collecting data on space dust particles and must have drifted too far. I meant no harm." Tay studied her face. Humans were hard to read, with their flat faces and small eyes. But his instincts told him something was off. "Our sensors detect unusual energy from your ship," he said, watching her reaction closely. "What are you really carrying?" Jin Park's smile didn't waver. "Only standard research equipment. Perhaps your sensors are picking up my sample containers. Some space dust has unusual properties." Lieutenant Mina moved closer to the screen, her dark-spotted fur marking her as from the southern clans. "Captain, the energy pattern matches nothing in our database." Tay's decision was quick. "You will be detained for questioning, human. Prepare to be boarded." For the first time, the human's calm face showed a flash of concern. "Captain, this is unnecessary. I can send you my research permits and—" "Silence," Tay hissed. "Lieutenant?" "Mina, prepare a boarding team. Full weapons and protection suits." Mina nodded sharply, her hand already at the communicator on her collar. "Yes, Captain." 20 minutes later, 6 armed Felridi soldiers floated across the short distance between the ships. Their spacesuits were designed to show their natural deadly grace, with special gloves that let their claws extend if needed. Inside her small ship, Jin Park sat waiting. She had changed from her casual clothes into a neat blue uniform with the Earth Science Academy patch. Her hands were empty and visible, resting on her knees. When the Felridi soldiers cut through her airlock, their weapons pointed at her head, she didn't flinch. She simply stood up slowly, hands still visible. "I am cooperating fully," she said calmly. "There's no need for violence." The leader of the boarding team, a large male with battle scars across his muzzle, growled softly. "Search the ship. The human comes with us." As they moved through Jin's ship, the soldiers found research equipment, food supplies, and personal items. Nothing seemed dangerous, but they took samples of everything. When they escorted Jin to their ship, she walked with her head high, studying everything around her with intelligent eyes. Most prisoners trembled or begged when captured by the Felridi. "Lieutenant." Mina met them at the Felridi ship's airlock, her tail swishing with curiosity. "This way, human," she said, pointing down a corridor. As they walked toward the brig, Mina couldn't help noticing how relaxed the human seemed. Jin looked around at the ship's interior with interest, as if she were a tourist rather than a prisoner. "Your ship design is fascinating," Jin commented. "The curved walls must help with gravity distribution." Mina's ears flicked back in surprise. Most species didn't notice such technical details, especially not when being arrested. "Silence," she ordered, but with less force than usual. Something about this human was strange. In the brig, Jin sat down on the hard bench and looked directly at Mina. "Your captain is making a mistake," she said quietly. "Humans are not what you think we are." Mina's fur rippled with unease as she activated the energy barrier. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just captured something they didn't understand at all. The bright morning light poured into the detention center on Felridi Prime, but Jin Park couldn't see it from her windowless cell. The walls were made of a strange metal that seemed to absorb all warmth. The single light overhead buzzed faintly, casting harsh shadows across the small space. Jin sat cross-legged on the floor, her back straight and her eyes closed. To anyone watching, she might have looked like she was meditating. In truth, she was listening, counting the footsteps of guards, noting the times when food arrived, tracking the changing of shifts. 3 days had passed since her arrival at the high-security facility. Unlike the other prisoners who paced, wept, or shouted, Jin remained calm. This unusual behavior had caught the attention of Warden Day. Warden Day was old for a Felriday, his once golden fur now faded to a dull yellow. The spots that covered his body had blurred with age, but his green eyes remained sharp and cruel. For 30 years, he had run this prison, and he prided himself on breaking even the toughest prisoners. "Human," he called as he approached Jin's cell. "Are you still pretending to be brave?" Jin opened her eyes slowly and looked at the warden. Her face showed no fear, only mild interest. "I'm not pretending anything," she replied. "I'm simply making the best of my situation." Day snorted, a sound halfway between a laugh and a growl. He paced back and forth in front of the energy barrier that kept Jin inside her cell. The barrier glowed faintly blue, humming with power. "Most species beg for mercy by now," he noted, watching her closely for any reaction. "The cold, the isolation, the uncertainty, it breaks them. Yet you sit there as if you're on vacation." Jin smiled slightly. "I find your facility fascinating. From an anthropological perspective, your species has created quite an effective system here." Day's tail twitched with irritation. Was the human mocking him? "This isn't a research trip, human. You're facing serious charges of espionage. Captain Tay is convinced you're a spy." "A misunderstanding that will eventually be cleared up," Jin said confidently. In the cell block across the hall, other prisoners had gathered near their energy barriers to watch the exchange. The detention center held criminals and suspected spies from a dozen different alien species, most of whom had never seen a human before. An old Centaurian with 4 arms and skin like blue leather whispered to the prisoner next to him. The Centaurian had been a traitor before his arrest and had encountered humans at distant spaceports. "The Felridae have made a grave mistake," he muttered. "Humans aren't what they appear to be." "What do you mean?" asked a young Vorlian with translucent skin. The Centaurian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "They look weak, but they survived on a death world. Their planet tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways, and they not only lived, but thrived. Now they carry that history in their bodies." The guards growled for silence, and the prisoners moved away from their barriers. Back at Jin's cell, Warden Day was growing frustrated with her calm responses. "Tomorrow you'll begin intensive questioning," he warned. "Our methods can be uncomfortable. I suggest you prepare yourself." Jin nodded politely. "Thank you for the warning." After Day left, Jin returned to her cross-legged position, but her eyes remained open, watching everything. She noted how the younger guards showed subtle signs of respect to the older ones, how the feeding times varied slightly depending on which guard was working, how the medical team that checked prisoners wore different protective gear for different species. When the lights dimmed for the night cycle, Jin finally stretched out on the thin sleeping mat. But instead of sleeping, she continued to observe through barely open eyes. Guard Back and Guard Sue came to check on prisoners every 42 minutes. The ventilation system cycled every 4 hours. The security cameras rotated in a specific pattern. None of this information would help her escape. Jin had no intention of escaping. Instead, she was building a comprehensive understanding of Felridae society from the inside. When morning came again, Jin was already sitting up, waiting, when the guards arrived to take her to interrogation. As they escorted her down long corridors, she noted the layout of the facility, the location of medical bays, the number of security checkpoints. "You seem very interested in our facility," said Guard Sue, a female with unusually dark spots. "I'm interested in everything," Jin replied honestly. "It's why I became a xenobiologist." "You'll be less interested after today," Sue warned, almost kindly. Jin smiled. "I doubt that very much." As they approached the interrogation room, Jin squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. The coming hours would be unpleasant but also informative. For a scientist like her, even pain could provide valuable data about Felridi psychology and cultural norms. The door slid open to reveal a room with a single metal chair in the center. The walls were covered in sound-absorbing material. A panel of officials waited, their yellow eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. Jin stepped forward without hesitation. Whatever happened next would only add to her understanding of these fascinating aliens who thought they had captured a simple human spy. They had no idea what humans were truly capable of. Security Chief Hoon sat at his desk, his black-spotted tail swishing back and forth with frustration. The light from 3 screens lit his face as he studied the human prisoner's files for the 3rd time. Despite his best efforts, he could find nothing suspicious about Dr. Jin Park. "Computer, run another background check on prisoner 7734, he ordered. The computer hummed softly. "Background check complete. All credentials verified as authentic." Hoon rubbed his eyes. He had barely slept since the human arrived 5 days ago. Captain Tay wanted answers, and Hoon had none to give. The door to his office slid open, and Captain Tay walked in. Even without his uniform, Tay looked commanding. His golden fur was neatly groomed, and his yellow eyes were sharp and alert. "Any progress?" Tay asked, his voice rumbling. Hoon stood quickly. "Captain, I've checked every database we have access to. Her credentials check out. She's genuinely a xenobiologist with the Earth Science Academy. Her research papers are real. Her ship's flight plan matches her story. I can find no evidence that she's a spy." Captain Tay's ears flattened against his head. "Then explain these anomalous readings," he demanded, pulling up a file on the main screen. Jin's medical scans filled the display, showing detailed images of her internal biology. No species should have such complexity in their cellular structure. Hoon studied the scans. The human cells showed unusual patterns and structures that the Felridi medical computers couldn't identify. "I can't explain it, Captain," Hoon admitted, "but it doesn't prove she's a spy. It could just be how humans are." "Nonsense," Tay snapped. "These readings suggest advanced bioengineering. No natural species has these kinds of adaptations." In another part of the detention facility, young medical officer Sue walked slowly down the corridor toward Jin's cell. Sue had joined the prison medical team just 3 months ago, fresh from her training. With gray fur and delicate spots, she was smaller than most Felridi, but her mind was quick and curious. Sue carried a tray of food, though bringing meals to prisoners wasn't her job. She had asked for the task specifically because she wanted to see the human up close. When she reached Jin's cell, Sue was surprised to find the human doing what looked like exercise, moving through slow, controlled positions that seemed to require both strength and balance. "Your meal," Sue announced, placing the tray in the delivery slot. Jin completed her movement before turning to face the young Felridi. "Thank you," she said with a small smile. "You're new. I haven't seen you before." Sue's whiskers twitched nervously. She shouldn't talk to prisoners, especially not one under special investigation. But her curiosity was too strong. "I'm Medical Officer Sue," she said quietly, checking that no other guards were nearby. I've been studying your scans." Jin picked up the tray and sat cross-legged on the floor to eat. "And what did you think of them?" she asked casually. Sue moved closer to the energy barrier. "They're like nothing I've ever seen. How can your species endure such varied environments? Your cells show adaptations for radiation resistance, temperature extremes, and toxin processing that shouldn't exist together in one species." Jin's eyes sparkled with interest. Earth shaped us differently than your homeworld shaped you, she explained between bites of food. We adapted to thousands of microbiomes simultaneously. Microbiomes? Sue repeated, confused by the term. Ecological systems filled with microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, Jin explained. Earth has countless different environments, each with its own challenges. Humans had to adapt to all of them. Sue's scientific curiosity was now fully engaged. But the level of cellular adaptation shown in your scans would take millions of years of evolution. Jin nodded. Exactly. Earth is an old planet and life there has been difficult. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, as we say. Over the next few days, Sue found reasons to visit Jin's cell regularly. Each time they talked about human biology, Earth's history, and the differences between their species. Sue began to look forward to these conversations. Jin was an excellent teacher, explaining complex concepts clearly and asking thoughtful questions about Felridae biology in return. After a week of these secret conversations, Sue knew she had to speak up. She requested a meeting with Captain Tay, though her heart pounded with fear as she waited outside his office. Enter, Tay called. Sue stepped inside, standing at attention. Captain, I wish to report on the human prisoner. Tay looked up from his work. Medical Officer Sue, what have you found? Sir, I believe there may be a misunderstanding regarding Dr. Park's unusual cellular structure, Sue said, trying to keep her voice steady. Based on my research and observations, I think these adaptations may be natural for humans. Tay's eyes narrowed. Observations? Have you been talking to the prisoner? Sue's ears flattened against her head. Yes, sir, for medical research purposes. You've overstepped your authority, Tay growled. The prisoner is under investigation for espionage, not a subject for your curiosity. But sir, Sue persisted, what if she's telling the truth? What if humans really did evolve these adaptations naturally? It would explain the readings without requiring her to be a spy. That's enough, medical officer, Tay said firmly. Return to your duties and stay away from the prisoner. This matter is beyond your rank. Sue left the office with her tail low, but she wasn't discouraged. She knew. What she had learned from Jin made sense. As she walked back to the medical bay, she wondered what other surprises humans might hold, and what would happen when the Felridae discovered them. Captain Tay watched her go, his face stern. But after the door closed, he pulled up Jin's file, again, and stared at the medical scans. For the first time, a small seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. The loud alarm started suddenly, cutting through the quiet of the prison. Red lights flashed in every corridor of the Felridae detention facility, turning the normally white walls a bloody color. Jin Park sat up quickly in her cell, watching as guards ran past her door. Something was very wrong. Through the energy barrier, she could see the panic on their faces. 3 guards collapsed right outside her cell, their bodies shaking with fever. Their spotted fur was wet with sweat, and they made painful sounds as they tried to breathe. Jin moved closer to the energy barrier, watching carefully. More guards fell sick by the minute. Whatever was happening seemed to affect only the Felridae. The other alien prisoners appeared fine, though they called out in fear and confusion. After an hour of chaos, Warden Day appeared at her cell. The once proud Felridae could barely stand. His fur was dull and wet, his eyes glazed with fever. He leaned heavily against the wall, barely able to stay on his feet. Is this your doing? He accused, his voice weak and scratchy. Did humans send you to attack us with some weapon? Jin shook her head firmly. No, this isn't my doing. From what I can see, it's a natural microbe in your atmosphere that has mutated. But I can help. I've studied similar pathogens in my work. Day looked at her with distrust, but he was desperate. How can you help? Our medical team is sick too. Half of them can't even stand. Take me to your medical bay, Jin said calmly. I need equipment to examine the pathogen. I believe my immune system has natural defenses against it. I might be able to create a treatment. Day's whiskers twitched with doubt. Why would you help us? We've kept you prisoner. Jin's face softened. Because that's what humans do. We help when we can. The warden struggled with the decision, but more emergency calls came through his communicator. The sickness was spreading through the entire planet, not just the prison. With a growl of frustration, he lowered the energy barrier. If this is a trick, he warned. It's not, Jin promised. 2 guards who were still healthy enough to walk escorted Jin through corridors filled with sick Felridae. Some lay on the floor too weak to move. Others were being carried to treatment rooms by robots. When they reached the medical bay, Jin was shocked by the scene. Dozens of Felridae medical staff and guards lay on beds, fighting for breath. The few doctors still on their feet moved slowly, their faces showing signs of the sickness already taking hold. Captain Tay stood in the center of the room, giving orders despite his obvious illness. When he saw Jin, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Warden, why is the prisoner here?" he demanded. "She says she can help," Day explained, then broke into a fit of coughing. Tay looked at Jin for a long moment. "If you're responsible for this..." "I'm not," Jin said firmly. "But I need to work fast. This pathogen moves quickly." Tay nodded to Medical Officer Sue, who stood nearby, looking tired but still healthy. "Work with her. Watch her closely." Sue quickly led Jin to a lab area. Jin immediately began examining samples of blood from sick Felridae. Her hands moved fast and sure over the equipment. "This is fascinating," she murmured. "The pathogen targets specific cellular structures that are unique to Felridae biology. That's why other species aren't affected." "Can you help?" Sue asked, her voice tight with worry. Jin looked up and nodded. "Yes. My immune system naturally produces compounds that can neutralize this pathogen. Humans evolved alongside thousands of diseases on Earth. We're walking medical libraries." Sue looked doubtful. "How is that possible?" "Earth is a dangerous place," Jin explained as she prepared her arm for a blood draw. "We had to adapt to countless microbes, viruses, and bacteria. Our immune systems learned to recognize and fight almost any threat." Sue carefully drew Jin's blood, her hands shaking slightly. "Even diseases you've never seen before?" "Yes," Jin said simply. "Our bodies prepare for the unknown." Sue took the blood sample to the analysis machine. As the results appeared on the screen, her eyes widened in shock. "This is impossible. Your body contains antibodies for diseases you've never encountered. How did you develop immunity to a pathogen that exists only on our world?" Jin smiled. "I didn't. But my immune system recognizes patterns. It sees similarities between this pathogen and others it knows. It's already creating defenses." For the next few hours, Jin and Sue worked together to create a treatment from Jin's blood. They extracted the helpful compounds and prepared them for injection. As they worked, more reports came in of the sickness spreading across the planet. Millions of Felridae were now ill. When the first batch of treatment was ready, they tested it on Warden Day, who was now so sick he could barely open his eyes. "This might sting a little," Jin warned as she gave him the injection. Everyone watched anxiously. Within 20 minutes, Day's breathing became easier. Within an hour, he could sit up. The treatment was working. "Make more," Captain Tay ordered. "As much as you can, as fast as you can." Jin nodded. "We'll need more human blood donors. Are there any other humans on your planet?" "3, Sue answered. "Diplomats from Earth." "Call them," Jin said. "Ask for their help. Every human's blood is different with unique immunities. The more samples we have, the stronger our treatment will be." As Jin continued working, Captain Tay watched her with new understanding. This human, whom he had arrested as a spy, was now saving his people. His suspicion began to turn to respect as he realized just how special and dangerous humans truly were. "You could have let us die," he said quietly to Jin when they were alone for a moment. Jin looked up from her work. "That's not who we are, Captain. Humans have survived because we learned to help each other through countless disasters. We don't abandon others in need, even those who have wronged us." Tay nodded slowly, beginning to understand that the Felridae had indeed made a grave mistake in their assessment of humans. They weren't just another species. They were something entirely new to the galaxy. The great hall of the Felridae High Council shone with golden light. Tall windows let in the morning sun, making the marble floor gleam. The room was huge, with high ceilings and old carvings that told stories of Felridae history. Today, the hall was packed. All 12 High Council members sat in their raised seats, their formal robes showing their rank with different colors and patterns. Behind them stood hundreds of important Felridae, military leaders, scientists, and government officials. All had recovered from the terrible sickness thanks to the cure made from human blood. In the center of the hall stood Dr. Jin Park. She wore a simple blue uniform of the Earth Science Academy, her back straight and her head high. This was the first time a human had ever been allowed in this sacred place. Elder Quan, the oldest and most respected of the council, rose from his seat. His fur was almost white with age, and he moved slowly, but his voice was still strong. 2. Weeks ago, a sickness swept across our world that might have killed millions, he began. Today, we gather to honor the one who saved us, and to admit a mistake. Jin stood quietly as Elder Quan spoke, her hands clasped behind her back. The arrest of Dr. Jin Park was not only unjustified, but has revealed a profound truth, announced Elder Quan. Humans possess biological adaptations unprecedented in our galaxy. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Most Felridae had thought of humans as a weak new species. Now they were learning how wrong they had been. Captain Tay stepped forward from the line of military officers. He looked different now, humbler, less proud. The experience of nearly dying, and then being saved by his prisoner, had changed him. Formally withdraw all charges and offer apology on behalf of the Felridae Patrol, he said, bowing his head to Jin. We acted in fear of what we did not understand. Jin nodded acceptance. My people don't seek retribution but partnership, she said, her voice clear and strong in the huge room. Earth's biological diversity created humans with immune systems that can help all species. Elder Quan picked up a gold pen and signed the document on the table before him. The other 11 council members did the same. Then, he held the pen out to Jin. With this treaty, we establish the first human Felridae medical exchange, he announced. Our worlds will share knowledge to fight disease throughout the galaxy. Jin took the pen and signed her name. The crowd broke into applause, a sound rarely heard in the formal Great Hall. After the ceremony, Jin was led to a smaller room for refreshments before her departure. Many Felridae officials came to speak with her, asking questions about Earth and humans. Jin answered patiently, building the first bridges between their worlds. As the reception was ending, Medical Officer Sue approached Jin quietly. I have been assigned to the new medical exchange program, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. I will be traveling to Earth next month. Jin smiled warmly. I look forward to showing you my world. Sue's whiskers twitched thoughtfully. I've been thinking about your time in our prison, she said. You never planned to escape, did you? You were gathering data the entire time. Jin's smile widened. You're very observant, Sue. Yes, I was studying your people, your biology, your social structures. That knowledge helped me create the cure quickly when it was needed. But why? Sue asked. You could have died in our prison. Why take such a risk? Jin looked out the window at the Felridae city spread below them. Sometimes the best way to introduce yourself to new neighbors is to show them what makes you valuable. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's the resilience we developed on a planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Sue shook her head in wonder. Your species is strange, Jin Park. Dangerous perhaps, but also kind. We can be both, Jin admitted. But we prefer friendship to conflict. Later that day, Jin boarded her small ship. Captain Tay had personally overseen its repair and resupply. The items that had been taken during her arrest had been returned, including her research samples. Safe journey, Dr. Park, Tay said formally as Jin prepared to leave. Please convey to Earth that the Felridae Look forward to stronger ties between our worlds. Jin nodded. I will. And Captain, next time you encounter something new and strange in space, perhaps ask questions before making arrests. Tay's ears flattened slightly in embarrassment, but he nodded agreement. As Jin's ship rose into the sky, hundreds of Felridi watched from below. They had thought they were capturing a spy, only to discover they had stumbled upon the galaxy's most valuable ally. In the ship, Jin opened her communication system to send a message to Earth. Mission accomplished, she reported. First contact with the Felridae has been established. They arrested me as expected, but the demonstration of human immune capabilities was even more effective than we hoped. The medical exchange treaty has been signed. She paused, looking back at the Felridae world growing smaller behind her. They're proud and cautious, but they learn quickly. I believe they'll make excellent partners for humanity's expansion into the galaxy. Sometimes being underestimated is our greatest advantage. Jin smiled as she set course for home. The Felridae had learned an important lesson, one that other species would soon discover. Humans might look ordinary, but they carried within them the extraordinary story of Earth, a planet that had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before.